And everybody was excited. Everybody was very excited, and rightfully so, when West Virginia led the way in what became a series of teacher strikes around the country, not just for better pay for teachers, but better working conditions and pay for everybody who worked in the schools and in the school system, and in better educational conditions for the children. It was really a lot of things I loved about this series of actions, including the community orientation of it, that we're all in this together. We have to improve things for everyone. And of course, they won some victories. Those strikes and those victories got a lot of attention. And now I would say that behind the scenes, the powers that be have been working to kind of roll back the advances that were made and undermine the progress that was made. But our next guest knows more about it than I do. Jay O'Neill is a middle school teacher in Charleston, West Virginia. He is, among other things, a founder of the West Virginia United Caucus, which included the West Virginia Public Employees United Face Group that was kind of a catalyst, organizing center hub for the West Virginia strike of both teachers and service personnel that took place last year. So he joins us now to talk about the latest developments. Jay O'Neill, thanks for coming on the program.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And listen, before we get started, congratulations on the fantastic work you and your colleagues did. You guys really set a trend for the entire nation, and you should be really proud of that.
Thank you so much.
And secondly, so now I understand that in various parts of the country, including your state of West Virginia, just this week, just last night as we record this, I understand that a bill was passed, an education bill, that is, from the point of view of the teachers and students and everyone else who supported this effort, is, to put it simply, not so great. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's definitely correct.
Okay, so tell us what is not so great about it.
The biggest part of it and the biggest problem with it is charter schools. West Virginia is one of 6 states that still doesn't have charter schools, and this bill, the main push behind it was to start charter schools in West Virginia. And we fought long and hard, but it passed the House last night, so things don't look great.
So, charter schools have been talked about a lot. There have been a lot of controversy over it. I think for a while, they had a great run of convincing the public that they were this creative solution to education problems. And I and many, many other people wrote a lot about them, about the fact that in many cases what they turn out to be is an opportunity to undermine the rights of teachers, to cherry pick students, to skim off a certain amount of the already skimpy education budgets for the private sector. Really, I kind of see them as partially a money-making, which is not to say you can't have magnet schools and special schools within the public education system, but I tend to see them as undermining the sort of we're all in this together nature of public education, both for teachers and students. I would guess that you might agree with me on that.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Our biggest concern is the privatization aspect. They'll say that these schools are nonprofit, which is technically true. There's a nonprofit board that runs them, but then they contract out so many of their services to for-profit companies. And now we have these large education management organizations. Some of them are chains that operate across the country and are for-profit. So they're literally making money off our students. And I don't know, that does not sit with us well. We're upset about that. West Virginia is a very poor state. Our schools are already underfunded, and the last thing we want to see is money sucked out to private corporations.
So how did the charter schools get a foothold in West Virginia? And we also, as you undoubtedly know, you have another city that has economic woes, New Orleans, and I know West Virginia is a state, but you have the city of New Orleans, where after Hurricane Katrina, they're all public charter schools now, at least last I heard. How is it that charter schools manage to go into, let's say, an economically challenged state like West Virginia, where it must be hard enough to, you don't have really the budget you need to educate the children of West Virginia. How is it possible to go in there and say, well, there's so much money lying around that we can give some to the private sector and we'll all be better off? How does the other side even justify that?
So you're right in bringing up New Orleans because there is kind of a pattern to this. They'll look at a place, New Orleans, it gets wrecked by Hurricane Katrina, and they say, "Oh my goodness, we've got to do something to fix these schools. These schools are terrible. Let's bring in school choice." Same thing in West Virginia. We didn't have some kind of natural disaster, but because of poverty, because of the opioid crisis, because of everything we're already facing, they could say, "Your schools are failing. Let's try something new. Let's try school choice." And they couch it in those words to make it sound, innocuous and not a problem. And that's kind of how they start to slip it in. And then you have groups like Americans for Prosperity and other groups attached to, the American Legislative Exchange Council, who in West Virginia recently have spent over $100,000, sending out mailers, billboards, and everything, pushing these. And so there's this kind of behind the scenes groups that are working on this, and that's kind of how they get them in the doorway.
Yeah, I think we've seen that scenario play out over and over again. So you had this vote in the West Virginia House of Delegates. It passed. I was looking at the headline, 51-47. Is that right?
That's right.
So that's like a straight party line vote, like all the Republicans voted for, all the Democrats voted against?
Actually, surprisingly, no. All the Democrats did vote against, but we had 7 Republicans that crossed over and voted against as well. To be honest, a week or two ago, we thought we could maybe get this killed in the House, but it seems that out-of-state money was more powerful than constituent voices here.
Well, money can be highly persuasive, as we all know. So, and again, we're talking with Jay O'Neill, one of the organizers of the West Virginia teacher strike of 2018, and now contending, as all of West Virginia's public school teachers are, with what's happening in terms of the pushback. So, what happens next to the bill? It goes to the state Senate?
Yeah, it goes to the state Senate, and it does its readings, and then if they decide to change anything, it goes to a conference committee. If they accept it as is, they'll sign it, and then it goes to the governor.
And then what are you guys, from an organizing point of view, how are you guys looking at responding to this? I mean, I'm guessing, I hate to say it, but it sounds like it's a done deal at this point. First of all, let me clarify. Is it a done deal at this point, you think? Is it going to be hard to stop now?
I mean, it's not completely a done deal, but I do feel like it's going to be hard to stop. There were rumors that our governor and our Senate had come to a gentleman's agreement on Tuesday afternoon with the House and kind of worked out conditions of the bill that would satisfy everyone. So it's not looking good. We're going to try. We're going to be up at the Capitol again fighting and talking to legislators, but it doesn't look good right now.
So assuming it goes through, and I don't want to be a pessimist, but if it goes through, is there an organizing plan yet, or is it too early?
It's a good question. There's talks of things. We had a very similar bill back in February, very similar actually, that they almost got passed, and we ended up having to have a 2-day teacher walkout again just in past February. And so we think one reason they tried to put this off and do it in the summer is that, teachers and service personnel were not in school. We don't have the leverage of a strike right now. So there's talk of doing that in August, but problem is it's a lot harder to repeal legislation than it is to stop it from being passed.
So let's game this out a little bit, Jay O'Neill, if you don't mind. So, because here's obviously the biggest concern of all, for all of us, for you, me, everyone involved in this, most of the people listening, the biggest concern is the children of West Virginia. And based on all the reading I've done, all the research I've seen, on the charter school process, not only does it suck dollars out of an already struggling budget, I mean, that's the classic pattern, right? You starve the education system of money. Then when it's struggling, you say, see, they're not doing very well. Let's give it to the private sector that wants to make it a 15% profit. Well, if you don't have enough to get the job done, you certainly don't have enough to cut out 15% and get the job done. So what I'm worried about is what I've seen of charter schools in the past is, in order to show, especially in this transitional phase, in order to persuade the public that they're effective, they cherry pick students, they mistreat and force out the students that are underperforming, when a lot of times those are just the kids who need extra attention and more support, more care, but they drive them out, which traumatizes them and leaves them feeling like failures. And then they start to drain out the ones that are going to test better. And pretty soon you have a two-tiered educational system where only a few kids, maybe more well-to-do than not, are in the system that's getting more of the funding. And it really is a threat to the entire public education system. So assuming that a strike in August can't stop this thing, it's going to take kind of concerted education, public education, isn't it? Because I'm thinking, for example, of Los Angeles, where, as you know, and we covered it on the program, the school board, as control of the school board has changed as a result of anti-privatization activity. You guys see yourselves getting electorally involved in that way, or maybe taking it to another level as a struggle?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. One component of the bill, at least as it stands right now, is that it would be local county level schools. Our districts here are by county level. And so each county school board would be the authorizer of a charter school. So if the school board didn't want to allow a charter in there, it wouldn't happen. So that's going to be a new thing we're doing, is really organizing at the local level and ensuring that we have boards that won't allow charters in the first place. So possibly even if these are allowed or legal by law, maybe we won't have any because locally we've put a stop to them. So that is one next step we're going to take.
Well, that's a really good strategy. And before I ask you, as a closing question, how people can stay informed on this issue, I just have to digress a little bit and say, when I first got out of college, I taught middle school. And I don't know about, what subject do you teach, first of all?
I teach history.
I just love kids at that age. I mean, I know a lot of the other teachers would kind of roll their eyes and go, oh God, middle school, they're the worst. And they could be pretty obnoxious, to give them credit. But I just think it's a great age where you're dealing with like big issues, but at the same time, you're still a kid. So even though I had some especially challenging students, or maybe because of it, I thought it was just a really fun age, and they gave me a major workout every day. So I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. It's never boring. That's for sure. Every day is very, very different. And you're right. It's a nice age because they're, how would I say it? They're not kind of like too cool for you, maybe like a high schooler would be. They still have a little bit of that sense of wonder, but they're mature enough to kind of get some more difficult concepts. So I think it's actually a really nice age.
All right. Well, we are of like mind on that. So where can people go? How can people stay in touch with what's going on with you guys in West Virginia? Because last time around, you set the pace for the country. So maybe you guys will start something again. And for people who care about the kids of West Virginia, is there a way they can stay informed?
Sure. Our biggest thing that our caucus is doing, which our caucus is just a group of people that are in our two main teacher unions here, both the NEA and the AFT branch. We're at wvunitedcaucus.org. It's a great place to check out. And then from there, you can find links to our Facebook and Twitter. We're pretty active online and posting lots of updates, so you can find out more about what's going on and our continued fight against privatization in West Virginia.
All right. Well, good. I'm glad. I hope people will go and check that out. I'm glad you're out there doing this work, both the work of organizing and the work of teaching our middle schoolers. So Jay O'Neill, middle school teacher in Charleston, West Virginia, part of the West Virginia, and one of the founders of the West Virginia United Caucus. Thanks a lot for coming on the program.
Thanks so much for having me.